Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Maria Moellenberg from Colorado. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. You were telling me in the green room a little bit about where you live there in Colorado. Tell me about this rural area, because girl, I'm a big city girl. I don't know nothing about no rural areas.
I grew up outside of DC. So I came from a big area, born in New York. And out here, the town that I live closest to, it's probably about 150 people.
Ouch! That's
Yeah,
all?
right.
Ooh. And
So
everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's kids. They know what you're cooking for dinner.
that's right. They know what I'm cooking for dinner. And it's a beautiful community. It's warm here. There's lots of love. And there's cows in my backyard, and there's my ranch and our farm, and this is where I
So,
am.
are you raising cattle for milk, or are you doing cattle for meat production?
Cattle for meat and corn and millet and Milo.
What's
Those are
millet?
the crops. Millet, oh God, you have to ask me now. I have to show my ignorance. So these are grains.
Okay.
Millet is a grain.
Yeah.
And then wheat. We mostly farm wheat.
Wheat.
Um,
Okay.
yep, yep. Dry land, not irrigated. And that's what we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Farming and agriculture. I want to talk to you a little bit about that before we get into the more nitty gritty of your interview here today on the Edge Brains, right here, the place where the conversation is pointed. Point it. Where's my pointer? I gotta get you going. Point it. And the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Agriculture and farming is really taking a hit. Really taking a hit. And it's a lot of work, too.
It's a lot of work. I will say my husband is primarily the farmer. I help him when I can. I'm the therapist and the author. And he
Okay.
works hard. He works
I
hard.
know he does. What got him into farming and agriculture?
He was born into it,
Mhm.
several generations. In fact, this home that we live in was a homestead house
Oh,
that we
wow.
renovated to be out here on the land. And so he's sun up to sundown. Yeah.
Wow. So there's about 150 people in the town.
In the town, but we're outside.
What's going on with the COVID there? What you guys feeling
You
about that?
know, COVID, there have been several people who have been afflicted by COVID out here. Um, some people wear a mask, some people don't. You've got people who are vaccinated, people who aren't. But I've definitely known people out here in the area who have been afflicted, and some of my clients as well.
Wow.
It's
You
close
know,
to home. It's certainly close to home.
yeah. In rural areas, people don't feel that in my opinion, from what I've heard, that it's as much as a risk as these big city slickers. You know,
I
and
see.
and these big concert people that want to go to, and these big people that want to defy, want to defy the rules of science. So I'm just checking the pulse there. How's the cows and stuff doing? They doing all right?
They're pleasant. They're just doing their cow thing, chomping on the grass, and
Wow.
you know.
Do you ever get emotionally attached to the animals?
Oh, I do, sure. With because you my husband will ask me come out and see this calf being born, and so you
Mm.
get to go back to the roots. You get to see life sourced and watch this little calf be born, take its first breaths, and see the markings on its face, and you remember what little calf you got to see born into the world. So you're very close
And
to
how do you feel when you have to lead them to slaughter? When you have to take them to, you know?
the butcher house.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, we've got a butcher shop. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't take part in that. I don't do that part. And I don't eat beef either.
You don't?
Rarely, if ever. So
You're a
no,
vegetarian, or you just don't eat beef?
I just don't eat beef. No, I'll eat other, I'll eat turkey and chicken and, mostly plant-based. I try to stay with plants, but not a vegetarian. But no, I don't do the cutting up part. That's not my
Yeah,
thing.
no.
It's just not my thing.
Can I ask? I don't know if I can ask you this question, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. Do you know how long it is before the calf is actually butchered and it gets to the grocer? I had a conversation with
Oh,
somebody. I had a conversation with my husband because I go to the butcher shop and they're grass fed, and I mean, the if I'm gonna eat meat, I'm gonna eat the best meat. But sometimes it's like 2 weeks before it gets to the grocery store.
well, listen, you can find, no, I don't know the length of time, but you can find someone who will find, have contacts with a rancher who
Mm,
will buy their cattle and slaughter it for you, butcher
mm,
it for you, and get it right to you.
mm.
That's out there. My brother-in-law does that for people.
Wow, wow. All right, so now on to you. You are a clinical, well, no, let me get this right. You are a licensed marriage and family counselor there in Colorado. You're
Yes,
also an author.
I
So
am.
you're an author of a book called Daddy Dilemma.
That's
Brain,
right.
have you ever heard this saying, mama's baby, papa's maybe?
No, I have never.
You never heard that? Oh my
No.
God. Yeah, well, it's in one of my books. It's in one of the cliches. And basically, what it's saying is that there's a disconnect sometimes between the child and the father versus the mother and the child. And, that's not all fathers. My husband is stellar. He is one of the best husbands and fathers on the planet. And I grew up with a stepfather. I didn't grow up with my biological father, but he stepped in and he did a good job. He loved me, he nurtured me. He disappointed me in the end when my mother passed away. I expect for him to do a little bit more than what he did, but again, I'll take what I got, and he was amazing at what he did. But you have written a book about your experience or experiences that you've seen people go through when it comes to the father child relationship. Take us back. Take us back to your days of, really finding out that you wanted to be a clinical psychologist, and then move us forward to the pages of your book.
Oh my goodness. Becoming a therapist, psychology was always in my bones. I was always that child that was so interested in other people. And I think what really touched me was people's pain and their struggles and wanting to guide them in some way to help them and finding really through all this training and all these years that it's really that people just need someone to really listen with their whole heart, not give so much direction. You have the answers within yourself, but to really listen. So I went to college, went to graduate school, and wow, I'm in this profession for about 25 years. Um, the dad dilemma, I began to work with women who struggled in their relationship with their fathers. And it's not that it was a horrid relationship, but it was one that they couldn't quite find the connection and closeness that their hearts longed for. So it became about guiding and supporting women to create what they wanted to create in these really precious relationships.
And there's a lot of disappointment because of the expectation.
Absolutely.
And people set expectations even on women as mothers. I was talking to a couple women here that have experienced some extreme postpartum depression.
Mm,
And men are tender creatures. They get jealous. You're giving the baby all the attention. You're giving your girlfriends all the attention. You don't want to, you won't let me watch football in peace. You keep asking me that same damn question 100 times, and I've given you the answer. And they think differently. I go by a man's actions more so than his words. My stepfather was not a man of many words, but he would hold my hand and he'd take me with him to the barbershop, and he would teach me about art and culture and coins and those kind of things. But, regular teenage stuff, nah.
I love what you're talking about because in my book, I talk, a lot of times when I'm working with people and they have expectations that they place on their fathers or their partners, because whatever drama we play out with our fathers, we tend to take into that
Right.
special relationship with our partners.
Because you want a man like your dad, hopefully, if he's a good man.
Well, and so I talk with women about their expectations because oftentimes, if we don't check our expectations, those become demands, have tos,
Right.
judgments, then resentments. And so it's really a lot about what you were saying, that your dad, you're saying, wasn't necessarily the way you wanted him to show up, but you realized how he loved you in his ways.
Mm-hmm.
Your eyes were open to that.
But as a child, you don't, you don't have a set of rules. Just like as a parent, you don't have a set of instructions for your child. You really don't know what to expect. You get the hand that you're dealt. And there's a lot of women that are experiencing trauma from sexual assault, sexual abuse, just abuse, period, alcoholism, drugs. They see all of this played out by this quote unquote father figure, this male role model. That is the first role model that a young woman will ever see, is the father or the man that the mother has placed in their life.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times this conversation can also go back to the choices that the female makes.
Mm-hmm.
Is this epigenetic? Is this intergenerational trauma? Are you drawing the same type of man that your mother had? Are you drawing the same type of man that your sister's boyfriend was? Or are you creating a new paradigm? How do we reformulate that? How do we reshape that in our mind after a severe trauma?
You bet. And you're absolutely right. Not only is trauma generational, right, passed down through the generations, but so is ancestral shame. The
Yes.
shame. So all of this we take and we define ourselves as children because we're not consciously aware of, oh, if my father shows up this way in my relationship with him, we ascribe certain meanings unconsciously. You can call them shame narratives or false stories. And we start to believe these stories, which are really shameful thoughts, interwound with fears, with a limiting belief at the bottom of it. Such beliefs like, I'm not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm unwanted, or I'm unlovable. Many of us, we have these stories and these limiting beliefs, and we're so unaware. And that's why we then recreate that daddy drama in our relationships with our partners. So you asked a really great question, like, I think what you're asking is, how do we heal this?
Exactly. How do we, you know what? And maybe, everybody wants to heal. Sometimes you just can't heal. This is just going to be one of those wounds that leaves an ugly scar.
Yeah.
But how are you able to deal with it and say, you know what? This is what it is. I am not my circumstance. I'm bigger than this. And I don't want to continue this. I want to change it. So maybe a better word than heal is maybe shift.
Shift or learn to live with what happened in your life. And like you're saying, not allow those events to define who you
Right.
are. Because in the moment that you allow that event to define who you are, then you've lost sight of yourself. So as I work with people and in my book, we talk about, it reminds me a lot of what Michelangelo, that famous sculptor, when he was creating the David, he said, and I might butcher this a bit, but something around, I have a vision of David and I chip away at everything that is not him. And so it's the same with us. We need to shed what is not true about ourselves that we've taken on, these stories, these definitions. And as we shed more and more who is not you, who is not yourself, you show up in those spaces you create. You come to find the truth of who you are. That's how
Well,
that's the shift that you speak of. So awareness is key. You've got to notice and be aware of what your triggers are. What did he say? What did he do? What just happened, in other words? And my mind got really reactive. And I went into a shame story or a shame narrative. And then it becomes about looking at all the false thoughts and the fears that make up your shame narrative and discerning. You get very still, you get quiet, you discern really what is the truth objectively, what is the real reality right now. And as you
reality, Maria, is perception.
no.
Well,
Well,
I think reality and fact is fact. But let me tell you, honey, I have run into some people that their reality is a matter of perception. And it's a
yes.
lot more people than you think. And it's hard to get into the psyche or into the head of these individuals because it's so ingrained.
Oftentimes I'll ask people, does that story serve you? What does that create in your life? For example, yes, you're right in the sense that people have told themselves and lived with this shame narrative for so many decades that they believe it is reality. But when you start to unpack it and really look at, for example, if I have a fear of, I'm going to lose everything, I'm going to fail, and I'm going to lose everything. So I will is future oriented. Fear is basically our mind's prediction of the future in a scary way. So look at what's so right now. Tell the truth right now. The truth is I have everything. So that's, cut through. One great way to cut through fear, the lies of fear, is just tell what is really so and true in the moment. But so back to what you were saying, yes, so people will believe that's reality. So one thing I will ask them is, how does this serve you in your life? Does it create contentment or joy? Does it open your heart? Does it allow you to give and receive love? So if you start to look at your stories in your life, your shame narratives, which I obviously use interchangeably, you look at, how does this serve me? What does this serve me? Am I, Marianne Williamson talks about coming from a place of love or coming from a place of fear. Ask yourself that question.
Exactly. And so you have to, walk through the valley and the shadow of death and fear no evil, brains.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's scary. I mean, sometimes
it's scary. But the things that hurt us the most, Maria, are our best teachers. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I write a chapter on trust the wisdom and guidance of your pain. And it's about trusting that pain. Most of us want to run from it, avoid it, hide out. Some people may do drugs, alcohol to numb out, go from relationship to relationship, what have you, choose your poison. But pain is really not something to evade and hide from. And this is not easy, what I'm suggesting and what I've taken so many women through, but it's about stepping into your pain, trusting it that it has a message for you, trusting that what you call your shift or your healing is within that.
Well, that's a lot. So now you've collected all this data, all this information, you've talked to all these great knowledgeable heads, and you wrote a book.
I wrote a book
called Dad Dilemma. and you just released it. Congratulations,
Thank
bravo.
you.
It's like
Thank you.
giving birth to a baby. I know, I've done it, and you got to keep that baby out there until it's grown and it can walk on its own two legs.
I
So
love
tell
that.
us a little bit about the writing process, why you wrote the book, and then what's inside the pages of the book.
Well, I began writing my memoirs and really finished those during the height of, oh, I would say about a year ago, the height of the pandemic. And I say that uh, tentatively because I don't know, we don't know where all of this is going. So
Right.
who knows if that was the height, and hopefully it was. But either way, so that's when I began writing my memoirs. And then I was called to write this book, just felt a real strong call to write this book. And that's what I did. I joined a writing program and I just wrote this book one chapter at a time every morning, got up, got my coffee, walked my dog, and sat down and wrote. And that's how it went.
You're in a very peaceful and serene location, so I'm sure that you had a lot of time to do some self reflection. Is any of this autobiographical that's in your book?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's about my journey coming through um, a story like so many others, being a young girl who her father left. You know, my father left when I was probably 10, 11 years old, and watched my mother go through a lot of pain and struggle and really just fall down on her knees and find her way in all that pain. You know, she taught me a lot about rising. And over the years, and I write about this in my book, I share my story about, my father not coming back for several months and not knowing where he was, and, those abandonment issues coming to play, and carrying that into my future relationships, being so fearful of feeling that kind of heartache again. So becoming controlling and trying to prevent for that ever happening in my life again. So yeah, so there were issues between my dad and I resented him, I was angry with him, and finally found my way back to total acceptance and surrender and really loving him.
Did he ever remarry, and are there other siblings?
No, no other siblings. I'm the youngest of four. He never had any other children. He remarried one time and divorced and then never married again.
Did you have to deal with the step parent?
I wasn't around her. I was grown by that time. So it was more, it was not a really close relationship. I was in graduate school, so we didn't build that. We didn't form that. We didn't, have that quality time that we committed to that. He's with a wonderful woman right now, and they have a really sweet relationship together.
Did your mother find love again?
She did here and there, but she is on her own and she has beautiful close friendships and she loves life. She's like one of those warrior women. She landed in herself and she found her joy. And like I said, she was really that beacon for me, showing me how to fall down in life and
Right.
get back up.
Brains, let me have a little conversation with you real quick because there's a lot of things that go on with men. Men don't have the maternal instincts that women do. And just because a woman has a baby doesn't mean she's a good parent. So don't get it confused. Men separate themselves. They're the hunters and the gatherers. They're the warriors. They're the providers. They are the protectors. And that's what we look to them for, their strength, their guidance, their wisdom. But sometimes they fall short of the glory. They've been victimized. I'll use the black community for example. In the late 1970s, early 80s, the crack epidemic imploded in African American families. And what in turn happened is that the black man got addicted. to this substance and led him astray. The woman had to take care of the household, and she became so strong that she started to emasculate the man. I don't need you. You over there on them drugs, you doing this, you doing that, you running the streets, blah, 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 blah. So man lost his place. He didn't feel valued. He left the family. And then the woman became so strong and so self-righteous that she didn't need a man. Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been married to Mr. Magnificent for 37 years. And to this day, I still need him. Okay? And I let him know that he's appreciated, that he's wanted, that he's loved, because he came from a woman. And a woman can help nurture that. But when it comes to a point where someone doesn't love you or they mistreat you, love them enough to let them go. Okay? And explain to your children that it's not their fault that daddy's not there. Fathers, if you have to be away from the family, make it a point to keep those promises to your child. If you say you're going to be there, damn it, you better be there. If you are supposed to be the coach of the soccer team, be the coach of the soccer team. But engage in your children's life. It's so important. And it is the fundamental foundation of a young woman to see how a man treats a woman. My husband to this day opens the door for me. Sometimes I get to the truck before him and he's running over there to open the door. Somebody don't open the door for me, I go somewhere, I'm looking at them like they got horns. It is what is defined as masculine and feminine. The world's changing now. People are not even wanting to associate with a particular gender. They want to be non-binary. You know, there's a lot of same-sex couple relationships. Now kids have two fathers or they have two mothers. So the world is changing. So we as individuals have to evolve and have to get around that as well. And there's great people like Maria that are going to help us walk through that because she's very progressive. She's been there. She's had this conversation with many, many people, more than me. And I'm looking at it from a helicopter view, okay? But she's down there with a bird's eye view. She's right there on the ground floor working with them. I want you to grace us with an excerpt, with a reading from the pages of Daddy Dilemma. And I want you to just kind of sit back and enjoy this and listen to what she's saying and take heart to what she's about to read to us.
This is, my book really ultimately is working through the daddy drama, cutting those really unhealthy tethers of expectations, resentments, and really finding yourself, being that phoenix rising. So here's a little excerpt. Claim the truth that you belong. Taking your seat at life's table requires that you know in every cell of your being that it is yours to take and yours to have. This is your life. It was given to you. Your life belongs to you, every bit of it. Once you know that, then you become the author in co-creation. You take the hand of life. You get to co-create alongside the divine.
And the divine, we're talking about your divine spiritual guide.
Yeah, whatever you believe your source to be. I believe in God. I believe in the divine. Whatever you believe your source to be, it's when we can let go and finally heal all these wounds, then you get to see your father as a three-dimensional human being that he is. Your heart opens. You get to see him that he's just human trying to go through this life just like anyone else, with all their God-given struggles to find their way to the truth of, who you really are, who you've been created to be.
Absolutely.
So it's really
and it helps you heal as a woman in your relationships.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a heterosexual relationship. It can be a homosexual relationship, but the relationship still is dictated by an upbringing, by the parent that was there or the parent that wasn't there. There's parents that, sometimes fathers leave because they can't provide. Maybe There's illness. Maybe there's a drug problem. Maybe there's some shame associated. But there is an underlined, or maybe your mama ran them away. How about that one? That's a novel idea, because there's some wicked women out there too. Now, that can make a man say, you know what, let me leave this situation. But try to um, have a conversation, if nothing else, just to cleanse your soul and say, you know, at least I tried.
Clean the slate.
Forgiving, yeah, and it's hard to forgive a person that has been absent from your life for 30 years. You know, all of a sudden this person pops up, hey, I'm your daddy, you know, and you're looking at them like, who are you, Joe? You know, it's a difference between being a daddy and being a father.
It is
Some
a
people
difference.
just, and there's a lot of contributing factors there. So at least have that conversation and know that it is not you. Oh, he didn't want me. It wasn't about you. And you know what?
You.
Come on, let's be 100. Sometimes it is about you because there are unwanted pregnancies. There are extramarital affairs. Things happen and people separate themselves. But as we evolve and grow up, we see how life happens. And so we see how we could have gotten ourselves in that very same situation.
Absolutely. And that right there, in and of itself, just can bring you to the ground of humility. And you
Absolutely.
can, from there, you can forgive.
You can forgive because you know what happens. So remember, mama's baby, papa's maybe. Let me see the cover of the book you read, that beautiful excerpt. I want you to hold it so my brains can see it. Yes. Hold it down just a little bit. Yes. Now that's available now on Amazon, correct?
It's on Amazon, The Dad Dilemma. Yep.
And it's a beautiful book. And brains, I want you just to, take hold to it. Purchase it today. Maybe if you're lucky, she can hook you up and give you a signed copy. And work with someone like Maria that knows what she's talking about, that's been there, but is also empathetic and compassionate to you, the child, to the mother, and also to the father, because daddies need love too.
And also, you can go to dad-dilemma.com and you can email me at maria@dad-dilemma.com.
And I'm going to put all this information at the back of the interview. Maria, you have been a wealth of compassion and inspiration and love and some great farming information. I thank you for all of that. I wish you much success there in that small, wonderful community. I hope everyone is healing on all levels and that they're opening up and using your great services there because you are there to help. And give your husband a couple days off. Just run him a nice bath and maybe give him a manicure and a pedicure because I'm sure them hands is rough out there working.
I love that.
Yeah, and tell him how much you love him and I love him too. Okay?
Thank you for your beautiful light you bring to the world and how
Well,
you're contributing. Thank you.
well, thank you. I'm looking for my postcard so that we can sign off here on the Edge, Brains. I need you to go in and subscribe to every cotton picking thing. I need you to go in and purchase one of Maria's books. Sign up on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blog Talk, iTunes, Mixcloud, Spotify, the whole shebang. Because we're here to help you heal, to help you love, and to have one hell of a